Hello, my name is Jana Skokan. I'm the co-founder of Frogeex. I want to welcome you and thank you for joining our Frogeex YouTube channel today. If you like the content that we're sharing and the ideas that we're discussing, please like it, comment on it, and share it. And most importantly, come and join us on our live events. You have the opportunity to discuss with experts, exchange with like-minded people, and expand your perspectives all around topics related to sustainable building, sustainable living. And I also want to encourage you to click the little notification bell, subscribe to our channel, and never ever miss another episode of Frogeex Green Tech Talks in the future. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a great day. Thank you very much for joining this Frogeex Green Tech Talk session. It's actually a workshop, not really a talk today, but maybe we will have some elements as well on that one. And the idea and the red line today is sustainability and innovation, the combination of those two. Now, all of you or many of those people that are joining today are already working within environmental or with environmental related topics. Thank you, Peter. Nice to see you too. So in this matter, you may think now innovation, that's what we work with daily. However, maybe Jef can tell us more about, how business owners in whatever the segment is, whether it's a more environmental friendly segment or whether it's a less environmental friendly segment, are dealing with innovation on a daily basis. What are maybe the hurdles we as business owners may face with innovation, and how to basically also take the concept, take the business model to the next level, to the next step. So not only think, yes, we are good, we are sustainable, but maybe also consider some elements to look into what's coming next, what are the other possibilities. So, and there, I believe Jef is gonna hopefully blow our mind in this matter, I believe, with some insights that he's gonna share from his experience. So Jef is working many years already within consulting. Now, the last few years, focusing especially on the sustainability element and innovation. He has a wonderful story when we talk about how he came to sustainability. I'm not quite sure if we can go through that, Jef, but it's an impressive story how, run your own business, went through the process of, yes, I want to innovate. How do I innovate with sustainability, as a frame? I want to do it right. So I think that's really a great combination, but where you are not going only from theory or talking about theory, about beautiful concepts, but you know how it works as a business owner, as somebody that wants to create something and have also a viable business model. So this is why we have the pleasure to have Mr. Jef Teugels from the Reins Group here with us, and definitely share with us more on innovation and how to be innovative in the daily routine.
Okay, well, thank you, Jana, for the very, very kind words. My name is Jef. I'm originally from Belgium. I have the pleasure of being in Krakow at the moment. Yeah, and I said it's about me, but it's never about me. I can share some things that I experienced, and it is really all about sustainability and the things that we have to do. And I think what I heard from everybody and the faces I see, and the hi Peter, familiar faces I see. Some of you I've known but never spoke to, like Herman. Very lovely to meet you, Herman. So let's go through it. What I'm very much a fan of and try to do is part of my work as a consultant is digging into the theory, but the theory never gets us anywhere if we stick to theory. Theory is extremely important. So I try to divide my time between 70% being in practice and 30% being in academics. One of the things I'm trying to do is close the theory practice gap. And the only way you can do it is by doing things. So in 2008, very briefly, I decided to go into sustainability. And I wanted to, I re-educated myself as a carpenter, did apprentice jobs, etc. And then I opened a carpentry shop without wood, which was the thing, because I love trees. And as a carpenter, what are you killing? You're killing trees. And there are alternatives, like eco boards that came from the Netherlands and still exist. It's actually agricultural waste that is compressed together, and the the fluids inside the agricultural waste act as a glue. It's an extremely strong thing. It's stronger actually than the MDF and the OSB boards that we see. But it's about bringing those two together. So bringing the theory into practice. And we're going to talk about sustainable innovation and if that exists.
Perfect.
You know, I thought about starting with this. What if innovation is about the future, it's about creating the future and looking for answers? And what if I told you that all the answers were in the box all along? Might sound cryptic, but we use this term because when we're thinking about innovation, we tend to think outside of the box, like the solutions are always outside of the box. But what if they are always in the box? And that's what we're going to talk about today. If you could move on to the next slide. So the little agenda that we have is sustainable innovation. Is there such a thing as sustainable innovation? And then I'm going to dive deep into one framework, which is a very practical framework. It's called systematic innovative thinking. It emerged in the 1990s in Israel from really engineering people. I'm going to give a few examples and then a Q&A. So that's our agenda. Let's dive straight into sustainable innovation. You see, there is a sky the limit. But what is innovation exactly? It's worthwhile standing still and thinking about what it is. So if we look at the dictionary, Merriam-Webster, and Peter Miles, I'm sorry, I didn't take the Oxford dictionary. It is just the introduction of something new. That doesn't tell us very much. Kenneth Morris, who is the former managing director of the MIT Entrepreneurship Center and now is an executive with 3M, he coined this equation, which I like very much, and said innovation is invention plus commercialization. Invention is where we're very creative, but we can be extremely creative. And if there is no commercialization, that meaning is if there is no viable economic audience for your invention, it's not going to be an innovation. So an innovation is only an innovation when it is accepted within a viable number of customers. There's real win worth, which you see there, which is sort of the service design and design thinking principles. IDEO is the leading company in the world on service design and design. And they say real win worth is actually a different way of phrasing innovation equals invention plus commercialization. What does real mean? Real means is what we're trying to solve. Is that problem real? Is that really a problem? If the answer is yes, you go to win. And win is, can we, with the core competences that we have as a business, can we win in that market if we create that market or if we enter that market? Suppose the answer is yes, you go to worth. And worth is it worth our effort? Is it worth our investment to go in there? So real win worth is actually a very quick double check of what is this idea, what is the innovation that we're trying to achieve. But then I ask the question, is the sky the limit? And there I would, Jana, actually ask our audience what they think. Do you think that the sky is the limit in terms of innovation?
I invite you, everybody, to just drop in or unmute yourself or raise your hand if you would like to speak first.
Yeah, I think the sky is the limit because it's all what you are thinking of possibility, but also how you can implement it.
Mm-hmm.
What is the sky for you? For instance, it might be the Mariana Trench. It might be the limit. So I understand the concept. I just have a remark. Innovation is invention plus market success, which is commercialization. Yeah, obviously.
Can I say something?
Yeah, hey, Ricardo. Yeah, of course.
Hey, so for me, innovation is new. Doesn't matter if the sky is the limit or not. I think for our mindset, for the creativity of the people, we have unlimited resource and ideas. So I don't think that there's a sky as a limit. there is no limit for innovation. We are always inventing new things, new products, new solutions, and that's what we are about, humans.
Okay. Well, thanks for the answers. If you can go to the next slide. We go to sustainable innovation. Before I read this thing, I am actually challenging the paradigm that the sky is the limit and make a distinction there. Our thoughts, our minds are actually limitless, but what we can do is very much restrained, and it's restrained more and more. So innovation is at the same time having this unbridled imagination, which the world very much needs, and within restraints, within borders, within boundaries. Now, if we're looking at sustainable innovation, it relates to changing the philosophy and the organization values and products, processes, practices to attain a specific purpose of creating and realizing social environmental value beyond economic returns. This is an academic source, and the source is written right there. The goal of sustainable innovation is to create and realize system value known as P, or planet, people, and prosperity. It's sometimes also known as planet, people, and profits, but I prefer prosperity. For me, profit is part of the prosperity. But it's a system that we create, and the system value goes beyond economic returns. And creating system value is not about harming the planet and people, but by having an intergenerational net positive impact. It's about doing better. It's about continuously doing better. So I'd like to rephrase sustainable innovation as, or the equation of it, as innovation within planetary and social thresholds plus viable adoption. And you said market acceptance, which is commercialization. Yeah, I would like to actually broaden that a little bit more. It's viable adoption, because we can innovate for customers. We can also innovate for citizens. We can innovate for patients. We can innovate for the planet itself. So that's what I would like to propose as a sort of equation for sustainable innovation. Thanks, Jana. You can go to the next slide. I would like to draw the attention that there is a difference between sustainability and sustainable development. These terms are used interchangeably, but they don't necessarily mean the same thing. And they are different, although they are connected. Sustainability is the broad term describing management of resources. So managing resources without depleting them for future generations. And that leads to that ultimate desired state of triple bottom line, planet, people, prosperity. Now, sustainable development, on the other hand, is the term describing the process for improving long-term well-being and quality of life without compromising future generations' ability to meet those needs. And we can look at that in terms of the sustainable development goals. Now, the misconception that might arise between these two is that we think that sustainability is only about protecting the environment. Our overuse of the word green is not necessarily clear to everybody that we also encompass the social aspects of it and the economic aspects of it. So sustainability, managing resources, sustainable development is the process for improving the long-term, what we like to call the intergenerational value. With the misconception, if we only focus on the environment, we put the collective effort to achieve the sustainable development goals at risk. So this is just sort of framing what we're talking about. You can go to the next slide, please. And can't hear you, Jana.
Sorry, thanks a lot. So Enrique raised his hand. Maybe it's the right time.
In this slide, Jef, how do you see, so you are talking about sustainability, sustainable development, correct? But if you look under an umbrella like the ESG sustainable strategy, then that will cover all, right? It will cover environmental, social, and governance or economic sustainability within within a company, within an organization, whatever?
It covers all, but from a very different perspective. And that's another misconception that I believe exists. Sustainability and sustainable development, in my opinion, is not ESG. ESG, if you look at why ESG is actually born and why it's used, it's an important thing, but it comes from the purpose of risk management. What an ESG rating tells you, it tells an investor how well a company protects itself against environmental, social, and governance risks. So that's something that the company has to do, absolutely. But it's a different lens through which you view the same things. While sustainable development is more the building of. And of course, there's risk and opportunities. So I would like to see, or I see sustainable development more in the opportunity and capturing the opportunities and trying to build a business, while ESG is more of how do we protect ourselves against risks. But they're very much interconnected. But that's a minor but important difference that I see. Does that answer your question, Henrik?
Yes, it does partially, because I have a broader perspective on the ESG. That is, for instance, when compared with the CSR, that is typically based on the triple bottom line. That the CSR was more a qualitative perspective of the impact of the company. So when a company was developing a policy for CSR, they were framing targets without KPIs, and the ESG, because it is governed by either GRI or SASB or whatever standards the company decides to match it against, then you have a quantified commitment of the company. I understand your perspective from the risk management. It is hugely used by the banks to assess inclusively the viability of the company in the near, in the middle, and in the long term, because of the impact it has on environment, social, and governance, but also brings this up to the surface, the quantification of the impact of the company in terms of sustainability. But go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think we're talking about the same thing. My only critique on ESG, and especially for public traded companies, is that it is used by investors and sort of misleading, because you can have a good ESG rating without really being sustainable. So if you blindly follow it, you're not going to see it. If you're not publicly traded and you use ESG as your progress report against your metrics, then I agree with you.
It is very sensitive to greenwashing as well.
Yeah, it is sensitive to greenwashing. That's the only thing I wanted to say. Okay, but very good remark. Thank you. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. Now, you see here the Venn diagram, which I explained. This is what I'm doing on a daily basis. I'm working within those three circles. And I'm going to describe these three circles very rapidly. The green one is what I call customer behavior. It is ultimately we're a business and we all depend as a business on our customers. If they don't buy from us, we're dead in the water. And customers behave in a certain way and the behavior changes. By the way, citizens' behavior changes as well. Patients' behavior changes, but there is this customer behavior thing. The blue circle is what I call organizational readiness, which means to what extent is a company or an organization ready to respond adequately to the customer behavior. And then the third sphere is exponential technologies. Exponential technologies that promises the sky is the limit, and from a technological point of view, it is the limit, and we're way above. We go to Mars. But those three spheres, if you look at them as spheres, they influence each other, and they're not necessarily spinning in the same direction. Like customer behavior, the purpose of it and the benefit it seeks is sometimes diametrical to what the organization's benefits are, what they seek. And exponential technologies are quite of maybe some neutral in it, but whenever they overlap, and because they spin, they create energy. And it's in the overlap, what I call the energy of innovation. In that sphere, in that place of the overlap is where the energy for innovation arises, emerges. Now we can do two things. We can either undergo that energy or we can do something with it. If we decide to do something in it, we can move into innovation. So that is energy. It's the field created by the constant friction between the three spheres, and it's a source of renewable innovation energy, but it is restrained by the thresholds imposed by the natural step framework. And I'm a big fan of the natural step framework because it describes the limits that we have, the boundaries, extremely easily. So the four boundaries are: there's no systemic increase in concentrations of substances from the Earth's crust. We don't take anything from fossil fuels. We don't take anything out of the crust. We don't put synthetic substances on it. We make sure there is no increase. We make sure there is no degradation of the physical world around us. And also society, we make sure there are no obstacles to people's health, influence, competence, impartiality, and meaning. We will, I think, Jana, we will share these slides with the participants.
Yes, we can. We can put it up somewhere to be accessible. That's certainly possible, Jef. And I have also a question once we entered this zone. It's super interesting.
Yeah, and you see that nationalstep.org is in hyperlink, so it takes you directly to the source. I can urge everybody to take a look at it. It's an extremely good, simple framework, but scientifically proven again.
Super. Jef, may I have a question to this? So looking at this diagram, I mean, it really reminds me of a situation that we see right now on the market, especially in, for example, solar. So when you look at customer behavior, certainly we see already the people are moving, they are very interested in, let's do it. Finally, we have the subsidies working, so people get very eager in, yes, let's implement it, let's get the solars up. Now, what we see is organizational readiness. Now, when you hear or when you talk to solar companies, it's a very challenging situation because some of them experience huge growth that they partially cannot even manage, or they really have difficulties to basically adapt internally. The organizational readiness is not there. They have challenges to either onboard people because it's too many people at once, too many projects at once. So it's a very, very interesting situation that brings them eventually to consider to slow down, even in the business, which is very interesting to see. And then we go into the part of exponential technologies. Now we see all this new tech comes in on the solar. So we see the solar films applicable on windows, transparent solar materials or materials used from bio-based sources like food waste, which are a new technology as well. So reading or looking now at this or energy innovation or energy of innovation in this intersection, what's the outcome now? What do we see, or what's the innovation that will happen on the market? Where does it push us? Or what's the kind of, because we see that's all now coming together. So what's ultimately the result which we eventually going to see? I mean, if you can share with us.
Yeah, in my opinion, what we're going to see is what we've always seen with innovation, and it is that the one thing that gets adopted by people. We have to bear in mind that more than 90% of new products and services fail when they launch, after launch. So it's only a minority that actually makes it into a success. And who decides whether something is a success, yes or no? It is ultimately the customer. We've seen rises in solar use of solar panels, very much driven by subsidies. When the subsidies fail, the readiness from the customer point of view to invest in it is lowered. What we really see within customer behavior is a change in mindset, and it's only that mindset. If that mindset demands sustainability and sustainable development, and says to an organization, show me transparently what you're doing, then I think whoever can do that and solve a real solution for the customer, those are the ones that will survive and that will become really innovations. But it is the customer that decides. And I'm very glad that Ricardo from European Customer Experience Organization has joined us. Customer experience is one thing, but it's a very broad term as well. But it is ultimately the customer who will decide if something is an innovation. But it takes a mindset. If you're green, if you're suddenly green, let's put it that way, if you're suddenly green because you get a subsidy, you're not green. You're actually contributing to greenwashing. Jana told me another term, which I didn't know last week, green hushing. That also appears. But what we see in our organizational readiness is last year, the climate change really hit home. We felt it. Germany got flooded, Belgium got flooded, parts of England got flooded. We feel it. We had two options. If we can laugh with it, we either burned or we drowned. But we can feel it. And what I see happening in organizations now, they all appoint sustainability directors. Like a couple of years ago, they all appointed chief experience officers. But that doesn't mean that you have the core competency in your organization. And there is a big skills gap at the moment on sustainability, on sustainable development, and on actually market readiness. Technology, we're way ahead. With technology, we can basically do whatever we want. So we have to restrain that. We have to rein that in. So the sky is the limit for the red thing. The sky is not the limit for the blue and the green. That's basically my answer to that.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we can go to the next slide. So let me introduce you to systematic inventive thinking. And instead of going out of the box, let's go in the box. That's what we started with. What if all the answers that we need are actually in the box? And in the box is just a mental picture to describe the closed world. And the closed world in systematic inventive thinking is the world in which the problem that you're trying to resolve lives. Let's look at the world in which the problem lives. And the answer for solving the problem is in the same world. So you have to think a little bit abstractively here. But whatever world the problem lives in also contains the answer to solve the problem. Now, solving the problem, although it lives in the same world, and that's Albert Einstein taught us, you cannot solve a problem with the same mindset that created the problem in the first place. But the residency of the problem remains the same. It's in the closed world. It's actually in the box. So when in systematic or SIT, we talk about in the box, that means within that closed world. So it is a bit opposite to design thinking, where we go and say, well, we venture off and we try to have as many ideas as possible. Here we try to really restrain it. And the people who came up with systemic inventive thinking studied it very, very carefully. And they came up with 5 actually thinking tools and 6 principles that can help you innovate. So the chances of your invention becoming adopted is increased by this way of thinking. And I thought it was interesting for you and for our participants to look at what this closed box thinking or closed world thinking really is. And you can put on the next slide. So the problem is not coming up with lots and lots of different ideas. If we all put our minds to it, we can come up with a lot of them. But the problem is really coming up with original ones. And surprisingly, they can be found in the box, in the closed world, by using 5 thinking tools and 6 principles. And like I said, the closed world is the world that the problem you want to solve lives in, but it doesn't use the same thinking that caused the problem. Okay, you can go to the things, please. So we're going one by one through these tools. And the first tool is called subtraction. And it's extremely simple, actually. You have a product or a service. Now, when I speak of a product, I make no difference between products and services. Because for me, a product and a service is both the result of a process. It's the result of something that you did. A product is tangible, it remains. Service is intangible, it disappears. But you want to improve something, you want to innovate on something, remove an essential component from a product and find uses for the newly envisioned arrangement of the remaining components. So we take a product, we take a dollar part, and we say, what is an essential part of this product? And we throw away the essential part. An example of that is a keyless lock. What did we throw away here?
Looks like the keys, just to.
Yeah, we threw away the keys. The keys are no longer in there. And still we have something that works and that is innovative. You can't lose the keys. You can lose your smartphone, of course, but and this goes way beyond the app that you see. You have iris in the eyes that can open doors, etc. But subtraction is one thinking tool. So look at your product or service. What's essential? Throw it out. And what do we have? Can we find new purposes for it? Okay, you can go to the next slide. The next slide is multiplication, with the opposite. You copy a component of your product, but you change it in some way. And 2 keywords for this technique are more or different. So you see this multi outlet, or I don't know how to call it. We have this USB drive on the other, and then the multiple other ports. So instead of 1 cable, we still have 1 cable, but it has a lot of endings. So this is a perfect example of the multiplication tool. And remember, we're still talking about the same thing, we're still in the same world. But tools force us to think in a certain way. And we can go to the third, which is the vision. And that is, you divide a product and or its components and form a new product. And this technique forces you to consider different structures. So you have a product, you dissect it, and then you say, we have these components, can we reconstruct it and find a different or a new purpose or a new goal for it, a new usage for it? And one of classical examples is what we see here is the top is a fridge and the bottom is a refrigerator, it's a freezer. That is just a classic example of the vision tool. These examples are old, but they're universal. We all know them, they're ubiquitous. But it's about really the way of thinking. How can we divide something and try to form a new product? And is it useful? Number 4. It is task unification. Can we just add a new task to the same resource? And what you see here is a lamp on your lamp stand. It's got a USB charger in it. Why not? There's electricity running through it. And we're looking always for the extensions on the USB cable, looking for power outlets, just plug it into the lamp. It's a prime example of task unification. Can we take the same product, add a resource, and have multiple tasks that it can fulfill? So if you really think in terms of efficiency, there's a couple of products that we don't no longer need when we do this task unification.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fifth one, and the last one is attribute dependency. It's a rich word, but it's creating and dissolving dependencies between variables of a product. So variables are easy to identify as those characteristics that change within a product or component, material, size, color, etc. But what we have here is we created actually a dependency between, on the one hand, the detector, the sensor, and the water tap. So it's pretty close to task unification, but we created dependencies on it. The lamp will still work as a lamp. This will still work as a water tap, but it's not meant to work as a water tap with a handle to put the water on and off. You just do it with your hands. From a sustainability point of view, water usage can be very much or much better managed, etc. But those are the 5 thinking tools. So if we have the time, Jana, I would love to have a discussion amongst the participants. You can create a breakout room for a couple of minutes where the participants think and discuss these thinking tools and how they would apply it to maybe one of the products that they sell, or one of the services that they have, or whatever it is that they do. So Peter, I know you're in hemp. Herman, I know you're also in buildings. Enrique, you're with your glass. Do these 5 thinking techniques resonate somehow with what you're doing? So if we have 5 minutes of time, I would ask you to open up a room, discuss it a little bit, then appoint one speaker, and that one speaker will then tell us what the outcome of your discussion is.
Wonderful. So that seemed like a live discussion. Hopefully you had a good session. Everybody was a little short. However, we have maybe that's a good point for next time to plan a little bit more time in. However, as we have a few more principles ahead of us, maybe is there the speaker of a group appointed? Maybe we can start with the first group. I know Enrique, you were in the group, Jef, and Emma as well, who would like to maybe share your points, your takeaways from that session.
Jef, go ahead, Jef. You pick it up.
You are on mute, Jef. You're on mute. Sorry for that.
I was a visitor in the group, so let's give it to Emma, because she made a good remark that I think everybody should hear.
Okay, thank you. I had arrived late, so I didn't hear everything, but I love the concept of breaking something apart and looking at its components in the different ways that Jef noted. And then in our conversation, Enrique was talking about wanting to create something that could match the situation happening in an agricultural situation and be able to respond. And so I connected him to a rooftop farming system in Montreal, which is providing food for neighborhoods. And it can be, the farmer can be in Newfoundland and hundreds of miles away, check on his smartphone, her smartphone, and re-trigger the way that things are working so that the farm is highly functional, and actually I wish they would replicate it across every single industrial farm we have across Canada. So anyway, so that's what I offered, but thank you to Jef for the great concept.
Thank you, Emma, for sharing your perspective and the points from your group. Group number 2, anybody would like to? I mean, I'm not quite sure who's in the lead for sharing your points. Peter, Sandra, we did not hear much from you yet. Would you like to maybe? I'm not quite sure. Who would like to take it up?
Actually, it was Herman who
Oh, Herman. So please,
So,
don't be shy.
No problem. But it was too short. But I had a problem with a client who has a multi-layered product. But part we can process, but other part we can't process. So then I try to solve the problem for the client, so he is satisfied and I can sell a machine. So then both parties are satisfied. But when you stick now we can't process it, then you can't have a commercial output. And because I think you must always look what are the possibilities of your machine and how I can help my client to solve his problem. So that's the reason why I had mixed multi-layers with plastics and with biomass. So we have on the end we have three kinds of products. From the multi-layers we get aluminium, and with the plastics we have plastic oil, and because we do some biomass in it, we can also process some electricity, and this is the reason. So then you have one problem and you have three end results what the customer can use for to get his money back for the machine. So I think then you trying to get optimized his problem with my possibilities.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of applicating it. Basically, is very similar to what Emma shared. So Jef, sorry, Herman, would you like to add a point before we continue to the next?
No, that's right.
Okay, super. So then I would continue to the next part, Jef, if that is okay for you.
That's fine. Yep.
And I guess it's going to lead us to the principles.
Yeah, we already talked about this close word. It's thinking inside the box. That's the principle of SIT. The component of the problem is the component to your solution. But remember, make a distinction between the component and the way of thinking that you had to create the problem. So you have to change your paradigm. Then principle 2, it is qualitative change. You neutralize a problematic situation and remove the obstacle. Actually try to turn a disadvantage into an advantage. If we believe that the solution to a problem lies within the same world, we can actually take a reverse look at it. So basically what principle 2 says is take a reversed approach to it. Okay. 3, function follows form. In architecture, it's often form follows function, but here we say begin with an existing product, manipulate it, and create a virtual product, which is the form. And then look whether it satisfies existing or potential customer needs, the function. So can we do something? Can we manipulate something that's existing, rearrange it, shape it in different ways, and find a usage for it? That's another principle. So function follows form. And then the 4th is choose the path of most resistance. And that is something that we do not like to do, because we are hardwired in our brains to follow the path of least resistance. But choose the counterintuitive part. Go for a solution that seems to raise the most resistance by yourself and by others. And what that does, it forces you to stick inside the closed world, because we tend to take our solutions from thinking outside of the box. By the way, I'm not saying that thinking outside of the box is not good. It is good for certain conditions. It's good for certain situations. But we should also try this one. Try the path of least resistance. Try to limit ourselves. And if I can quote Leonardo da Vinci, he says, the great art comes from the artists who are most constrained of all. Full liberty doesn't give us art. It's the limitations that give us art. So choose a path of most resistance. Then principle 5 is the cognitive fixedness. We have to see that functional fixedness is look at the use of an object only in the traditional sense. And structural fixedness is looking at an object only in the way it's represented. It is represented rather than reorganize it. Again, look at what is existing. Look at it from a traditional sense. Look from what it's supposed to do, and then go to the other principle and look at it from a totally different side. The best way to describe this is you take whatever product you have in your hand, look at it from a traditional point of view, and turn it upside down. See what you have. So that's what that means. Then 6 is near far sweet. What that means is the sweet spot of coming up with solutions should be just outside of the sweet spot, but not too far either. What we mean by that is you have your problem, then you have your solution area, and you can think very far ahead, where we go again to the sky is the limit, again to thinking outside of the box, but remain rather close to what you had in the first place. So if you were to follow an SIT course, they would show you a problem. A problem needs an aerial transportation, and the far solution is a UFO. Don't go there. Stick to a helicopter, for instance, just to put it in the metaphorical terms. Because those distances, they provide the balances, the checks and balances for innovativeness and feasibility. Remember, we are looking for the biggest chance of viable adoption. An invention is great, creative, but we need adoption for it to be economically viable, for it to be socially viable and environmentally viable. So those are the 6 principles. Again, at the bottom is the URL that leads you to Systemic Innovative Thinking website. Another one I can heartily recommend, very, very much recommend. And that is my presentation for today. That's what we were discussing. Now, once you receive your slides, when you have the overlap, the e-inno slide, if you click on that slide, it will take you to a video by Johan Rockström. And Johan Rockström is one of the founders of the Planetary Boundaries. And he talks about systematic innovative thinking. It's a 3-minute video. And I can recommend everybody to look at that video. So you will have it.
Thank you so much, Jef, for sharing this presentation. And to everybody, I think Peter needs to run now. So thank you, Peter, for also joining us. And just maybe a final word, Peter, thank you, all the best, and to see you maybe on the next one. Final word and final question, I mean, regarding what are the signs that the innovation is viable? I mean, that it's being adopted. I mean, what is it that you see either happening on the market, whether it's maybe more producers coming with a similar type, you see it like extending, or the concept expanding, or costs, or what are the indicators where you see, okay, this is an innovation that will go very broad?
In every innovation, we have the early enthusiasts, and then we have the early markets, and then we have the early adopters, the early mainstream, the late mainstream, the laggards. Every innovation that really becomes a success, we see that in the early adopters, they're actively working and refining the innovation. Once we see that happening, you can be pretty sure that there's going to be an adoption of it. So it is when the early adopters start actually completing the innovation, that is an extremely good sign.
Okay.
That you see.
And
so it's always a co-creation between the one that comes up with the innovation from a business point of view and the one who actually finishes the innovation from a user's point of view. When those two get together, you have co-creation. And again, you cannot take the customer out of the equation. The earlier you can get your customers in an innovation, and the earlier you see those signs that they say, oh, I can use it this way and I can use it that way. And by the way, you would be surprised at how many products are used in a different way than they were designed for, without the designers ever knowing it. If you see that happening, you're on the right track.
Okay, cool. Great point. And I also have a following question. I mean, we hear now, and we touched in several dimensions: innovation, sustainability, connected, but also a challenge in some way. And what is your perspective? And I also invite everybody on the call. What is your perspective on where do we go in terms of innovation within sustainability? Or, you know, how do you see it from, you know, your experience, whether it's business-wise or what you also have from the talks with other companies? What do you see is happening maybe on the market, like maybe an indication or trend, or yeah.
Shall I go first? Okay. What is happening now is running around with our heads in the sky, because sustainability all of a sudden is a hot topic, and we've all become sustainability experts, and we're not. So I can see a lot of greenwashing, more greenwashing popping up, a lot of claims of sustainability popping up, but then the chaff will be rooted out, and I think that truly sustainable innovations will arise. Now, innovation is nothing more than leadership in the future. So every executive needs to be active today in innovation. So if you're not doing innovation, you're not doing strategy. So I think we're going to see a lot of noise, a lot of hype coming, and everybody wants to be green. But I think that at the same time, the consumers are educating themselves to a large extent to look right through it, and they will be looking right through it more and more. They'll be more and more educated, because that's a big part that we need to do: educate and help consumers educate themselves if we are to move toward a sustainable society and world. But that's my 2 cents. I invite everybody else to provide their perspective.
Enrique, Herman, Sandra, Emma, please. I mean, final minutes are running, so use your chance right now.
Just a brief question. We have seen under the Schumpeter theories that when we reach a point exactly where we are, that the 80-20, so for a small improvement in performance, it is required a huge amount of resources, that we are near a disruption point. The question is that my perspective is that there is no possible sustainable development without innovation, because as you said, as you mentioned from Einstein's statement, we cannot use the same tools that brought us here to expect us to live to lead us into a different future. The question here is, within the equation of innovation, so being an invention plus a market success, how can we fast enough turn potential inventions that could lead to innovations into market successes? How do you see that? Because it's at the pace, and we are no longer at a linear, slow evolution pace. No, we are in an exponential phase where things need to be addressed regarding the climate. They need to be addressed very fast because we don't have much time left to act until it is irreversible. We reach the tipping point. How do you see all this happening together?
We will undergo it if we don't do anything. So we are used to a linear way of thinking and a linear way of working. But in a system, and we are part of a system, linear doesn't work. So we either undergo it and we don't do anything, and we will have dramatic consequences, or we can do something. Now, there is one question that I ask executives when I talk to them, and it is, if you look in the mirror and answer the following question: do you really believe that you as a leader and your company has a responsibility beyond monetary profit? So you have also responsibility for social and for environmental. And look in the mirror, and if you can say, yes, I do believe that we have a responsibility on those 3 planes, then then you will achieve something. If you say no, I'm convinced that profit is the only thing that matters, monetary profit, you're not going to make it. So the more leaders we can have that believe that those three themes must be met, those 3 objectives must be achieved, then we can do something. That's my opinion on it.
Well, I think also the level of visionary is also a point, I think, because when you start out of a visionary point and you bring your product along, then it's not only the product is one, but yourself and your vision is as an important role in why you're handling. So I think there's an extra dimension.
Absolutely, and what you're saying, Herman, is actually what Simon Sinek, whose work I adore, says: people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
That's right. So
yeah, and I think that's absolutely true. And the good part is that there's a research that came out, a global research on consumers, that we've reached 50% of consumers who think that buying purposefully and aware of what's going on, that sort of consumer has reached 50% of the respondents. And that to me is a very good sign. But we're 50-50, yeah? So.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple of things to say that I think one of the things that we probably should have done maybe 50 or 75 years ago was and the concept of limited liability, which allows those who are leading corporations that are creating products that will continue to harm and destroy the environment. That's like the shift to the grand SUV, which is now one of the largest carbon emitting countries in the world. But also I think that that innovating around drawdown and carbon sequestering is an urgent issue. And I think there are some organizations that are doing that. And then finding ways to alter consumer habits and I have no idea how to do that. You know, if the United Nations Security Council can't take Putin's veto away, we have some real big challenges ahead of us. So, but I think that those things are important. The limited liability of company executives, if we could find a way to manage that, and then inviting innovation in drawdown, and that's that's certainly where the World Bamboo Organization looks to put some of its time and energy. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Emma, for that. And you're absolutely right. And actually, it starts at a very young age with our education. We should bring up very young people with the mindsets of we're living on a finite world and we're just part of a system.
Which is massive, and sometimes it's innovation also a little bit going back to the roots, no?
Yeah.
So when I remember how I was brought up in terms of being close to nature, being taught how to garden, etc. So I think it's also a little bit going back to this part. Emma, it's a great thing that you mentioned bamboo and the World Bamboo Organization, a very important commodity for the future. I mean, super material, thousands of applications, wonderful stuff that we can do indoors and outdoors with it. So also just to as we close the call, and it was a very good discussion today. Thank you very much for joining, to everybody. I encourage you to join also in our next call. If you would like to drop just a quick short note, what you take away, was your biggest takeaway from today of the call in the chat, that would be very helpful also for us for the future to know, there was something that brought value to our audience, to the participants. And we will have also different sessions. Many more sessions are coming in the within the Frogeex Green Tech Talk series. So just to tease you a little bit, in terms of bamboo, Emma, you will have a lot of speaking partners, and I will invite you to those discussions and really welcome you over there to add your perspective on whatever comes. Same as to everybody, to Enrique, Herman, Jef, and to everybody that was on the call today and that will watch or listen to the replay of this session, just that you have all the details. I encourage you to join from various segments, also sessions that are maybe not directly related to your area where you work with initially, because it's also the beauty, the magic of the connections that we create over here, the community that we create over here. It's truly amazing people that are joining. I have to tell you this. It's wonderful, and it's also needed. So the type of cooperation, the understanding how all the areas are connected, that is something that we can certainly leverage more, especially when we think in the box, not only outside of it. So it was a great pleasure. I will resend the presentation to you, so you have it. I will also find a way how to load it or upload it on our site. And yeah, looking forward to see you on the next one, Jef. Kudos. Great pleasure to have you in this call today. Hopefully you have some takeaways that you either can, test out, some approaches, principles that you can just run through your products, your portfolio, your planning in the future. And what we also know is innovation is a great buzzword, but sometimes it just gets lost at some point and you are buried in your daily routine. So sometimes it's also good to, go to some other session and, go with fresh eyes out again. So in this matter, I wish you a very good rest of the day. It was a great pleasure having you here again. All the best, Emma, Herman, Enrique, Jef, and to everybody that is on the call. See you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.